welcome to everybody on this webinar and panel discussion. So Anil has saved me a lot of time and labor by presenting an outline of the discussions as we go along. What we will do is we will start with the three expert speakers that we have, who will present, broadly speaking, the impacts of climate change on fisheries and, if possible, on fish workers also, and talk about potential adaptation solutions or potential mitigation possibilities and so on. And if time permits, could also perhaps comment on what they see as happening in terms of government response and what they would like to see as government response. Professor Sugata Hazra, he's from the Department of Oceanographic Studies at Jadavpur University, one of the extremely active centers of studies on climate change in India. And as I understand it, Professor Hazra is also himself particularly active in studies in the Sundarbans region, which, as we all know, is one of the worst affected from the perspective of sea level rise and coastal erosion, etc., among all the regions. He will perhaps focus on the Bay of Bengal region and on the eastern flank of the country. Although I'm not restricting him to that, if he feels like it, he's quite free to talk about a larger universe, if you like.
You know that we are discussing the impact of climate change on the east coast of India, which has been impacted severely by anomalous rise of temperature, oceanic heat waves like the droughts in the land, the oceanic heat waves, the delayed and irregular monsoon as it happened this year also, that our farmers waited for June, July, and August. They are not able to sow their rice paddy, as well as they are unable to catch the hilsa, the prize catch of the year, because the rain didn't arrive before the month of Hazra, that is the kind of August. So that irregularity of monsoon, in spite of the good normal presentation, we had a 49%, prediction, we had a 49% of deficit of rain, and rise of cyclone intensity one after another, the frequency rise, which is affecting the fishing sector adversely because they are unable to go for fishing. Though you know that Bay of Bengal is a very one stratified kind of ocean, there is no upwelling like the western coast. So the cyclones are real opportunities for having a nutrient flux from below and little oxygen supply. So that is also getting affected. And also the highest rate of sea level rise in the Sundarban area, as Dr. Raghunandan was pointing out, it is more than 5 millimeter per year in Diamond Harbour, which is around 1.8 millimeter in most of the cases of Cochin, or 2 millimeter in Cochin, or 1.8 in Chennai. So these situation of climate change have affected the three major habitats for fisheries, and which we consider. One is the mangrove habitats of our, say, Sundarban, Orissa, or Bhitarkanika, or some part in Chennai, or some part in Andhra, small patches, and also in Andaman, a large patch of mangrove, chunk of mangrove, and the coral ecosystem. These two ecosystems are getting simultaneously adversely affected by climate change in different ways, and also the health of the ocean, because you know that because of temperature rise, there are less oxygen in the ocean water, and because of the very high heat content of the ocean that we are having now, our Indian Ocean is warming up in an alarming way. This can lead to 5 degrees centigrade rise by 2100, the rate that we can observe in different parts, plus a huge amount of plastic pollution, nitrogen pollution, as well as change of pH or acidity increase because of higher rate of dissolution of carbon dioxide uh, in the ocean water. So in this background, we will be talking about impact of climate change, where already the eastern sector, eastern coast marine fisheries, a large part of that is already overexploited. And this overexploitation is not done by small scale fishermen who are doing subsistence fisheries or going with small motorized boat with some gill net and small trawl net to catch their daily harvest. It is not by them, but by large investors, by large fishing craft and large trawlers who are sometimes drilling just trawling outside our EZ, or sometimes coming inside our EZ, sometimes as joint venture, sometimes as foreign invaders. So a difficult situation to assess the impact of climate change in an already overexploited fishery. That is my first point, that if you have to tackle or think of some adaptation to climate change, as the diagram shows here for West Bengal, this is the number of boats that per year up to 2018, which has gone up to 8,000, close to 8,000, a sharp rise after 2014-15. And there is no increase in the fish catch. That means there is a sharp decline in the catch per unit effort. So unless we can arrest the capital driven overfishing to reduce the vulnerability of the fisheries sector in the eastern coast, our future is not very promising in the time of climate change, because all the major commercial fishes that we target in West Bengal, like hilsa, the Pacific mackerel, king mackerel, or the Bombay duck, which is very common lucrative business, marine crab, crust crabs, or sea cuttlefish, or the prawns, or the ribbon fish, are reducing in catch. There is a significant reduction of species catch in different these commercial species. And another aspect of the coastal fishery is the aquaculture, and for the particular thing, the brackish water aquaculture in the coastal area, which is the boon at some point of time, as a threat also some point of time to the fisheries. The aquaculture area in the Sundarbans area have increased by nearly 5.82% in the SBR by 2019, from 3.6%, more or less doubled. The growth of aquaculture took place at the expense of agricultural land, which is not permitted legally, and mudflats and mangroves, away from the seafront and very close to the Calcutta commercial center. That is the blue areas that has been shown in the aquaculture farm area. So that means it is not driven by the sea level rise or salinity ingress, but driven by entirely market driven forces, which are trying to export prawns, or presently now the Vietnamese shrimp, for the foreign markets. And our mangroves, our agricultural lands are getting impacted. And this is the gem, or it is the prize catch for so-called blue economy. So if we have to think of climate change, sustainable fishing, and blue economy together, you can see the investment in this fisheries sector from 2015 and 16 has grown to from 3,000 crores for management of centrally sponsored fisheries scheme to in 1819 it is 7,522 crores for consensual credit to state and unity fisheries infrastructure. And we are very happy to see that in 2019 we have separate central ministry for fisheries, which was a long-standing demand of different states. But from 2020, they have proposed to spend around 20,000 crores for the blue revolution. So here we can pause and can think that whether this investment is going towards the right direction with the WTO regulations of no subsidy, no assistance to the fisheries sector, which will be exporting fish and will compete with their already crushed fisheries. So if India emerges with that, they are restricting our fishing effort to grow further, say towards a blue revolution, and the entire planning probably has moved away from the sectors of the small scale unorganized sectors of the scale fisheries, which is actually representing the 40% or over 40% of the fishing community. So the gaps or deficiencies in this entire top-down planning is that there's no data sharing among the states. No, there is no data sharing what we can for nowcasting or forecasting the fisheries, how it is going to behave, whether we have to restrict the effort or not. There is no implementation of any scheme. The spatial variability between, like West Bengal is already overexploited marine sector, but Orissa is quite underexploited, and Andaman is practically exploitation is yet to start. So you can see there is a large scope as well as difference, but which is not properly understood while formulating a policy for blue economy without taking representation from the fisheries sector, not by fisheries expert like me that who don't go for fishing, but actually the fishermen, their representatives, their trade unions, their organizations who have a in-depth knowledge of the sea and how it is facing the crisis of climate change, and no effort to regulate the trawl fishing or joint venture decline of the large-scale species, and knowledge and participatory management of sanctuaries and conservation sites. I have seen that we have declared 5 Hilsa sanctuaries so that the Hilsa can breed freely and can mature. They have come out with regulations, but nobody knows that. Nobody implements those regulations on the sea. So how we are going to regulate our excessive effort so that we can move towards a sustainable fishing practice, that is not yet understood, and no policy as such for climate adaptation in the fisheries sector, no declared policy. With that, you can see that as Dr. Raghunandan was pointing out, there are a lot of loss of mangrove area because of the sea level rise. The ocean facing island, there's a net loss of ocean facing islands, 49 square kilometers, and around 110 square kilometers of mangroves were lost to erosion, and 81 square kilometers could be planted within the human habitation. So there is a scope of preserving the mangrove because that is the nursery of the entire East Coast fishery. But there is a serious loss. How to prevent the loss? That becomes a question where nobody is able to answer. But the people have some answer. They have done it, shown it that we are planting, NGOs effort, community effort, that could save the mangrove, that can save the fisheries also. But the point is whether government is ready to take them, the people, on board to take a decision and to distribute the investment in the right way. So, and there is also a change in the mangrove species composition. Now we are observing less of the freshwater tolerant, freshwater loving mangroves like Heritaria, Nipa, or Soneracia, and dominance of more salt tolerant species like Cereops or Abyssinia or Ruguera, like that. So the health is also deteriorating. We are getting dwarf mangrove, we are getting thin mangroves, thinner mangroves with less AGB. And you can see the status of Hilsa fishery now, which is the prize catch of West Bengal, a cultural ambassador of the state. So you can see the decline, the red line. With increasing effort, the catch is not increasing, rather declining. So that actually indicates that we are fishing beyond the sustainable limit. And here lies the scientific questions. Are we calculating the sustainable limit of fishing in different fishery sectors for different commercial species? So that is the need of the hour, because we have calculated that we cannot catch more than 25,000 tons if we have to sustain the fishery and resist from crashing. And we cannot increase the number of boats on the sea more than 3,900. So where is the policy to regulate this? How we are going to implement that? Unless we can take the fishermen with making, how we can implement that? So that becomes a serious question. And we have done climate modeling under CNRM CM5 model for GFDL CM3 or had GM2. All are showing the increase to 3 to 4 degrees centigrade in the West Bengal coastal region by the end of the century. And with this temperature and paucity of rainfall, the climate change has a potential to reduce the GDP from fisheries by 17%, that is a published paper, by 2050. So the marine fisheries of Andaman is a different case altogether, because these are entirely very much underexploited area and is a huge potential to develop tuna fisheries. But people of Andaman cannot invest so much for going for tuna fishing in that way. So there is a scope that the government, with the help of the local fishermen and fishermen from Tamil Nadu or Andhra, can have a program of tuna fishery. The coral reefs there, it is like, as I discussed about the oceanic heat waves, they are experiencing already experienced 29 widespread bleaching events since 89, and the sea surface temperature was higher than the summer maximum. And it is apprehended that global warming and climate change, such events may increase, and we are actually observing that the events are increasing. And Vivekanandan predicted that the number of decadal catastrophic bleaching events would increase from 8 during 2080 to 89. And for that, we did a separate modeling again. The variability and trend of annual mean daily maximum temperature with RCP 4.5, which is the most acceptable to our region, but we have done it also in RCP 8.5 modeling. And we have seen that the number of events will be closer to 5 to 8 by 2050. So, and decadal bleaching events. And this decadal bleaching has some serious impacts on the Andaman marine fishery. The catch per unit effort in 2016 bleaching event has seriously declined. This also has been published in an international book volume. And the perch fisheries, particularly is 2000, after 2005 and 16, it has decreased quite a lot and is unable to recover. It is possible that because of the underfishing in Andaman, we can accommodate to some extent the bleaching event and the loss of fishery, coral fishery to some extent. So to conclude, I must say, and to think about any adaptation pathway, which I have not actually discussed here, I think it will emerge from the discussion, that to prepare ourselves for climate adaptation, we have to understand our diversity and different situations and differentiated response to this fishing thing. But to do that, we have to take the people on board, the fishermen on board, the trade unions on board, the fisheries organizations on board, to formulate a policy that where we need, say, subsidy for diesel, or where we need no subsidies but some restrictions, what do we need to implement some marine policing or vigil so that the right kind of net size and mesh size is used, and to regulate the fishing as well as to explore the newly unexplored area, because so far we have discussed about pelagics, but for benthics there is huge scope in the entire eastern region. But for West Bengal or situations like that where there are large deltas like in Bombay Saurashtra areas also, the platform is very large, so you don't get depth even after you go for fishing for 50 kilometers. So in those situations, we can, with so many crores of money at hand, we can build an offshore platform kind of thing where the marine fishermen need not come back to their home to refuel. We can have a on-sea refueling facility and transfer of marine catch so that we can allow them to go further, go deeper in search of the blue treasure.